Hello everyone, my name is Loko and welcome to the very first episode of Zerg vs Terran, how you play it pretty much. In this series of videos I'm going to go over the Zerg vs Terran matchup and pretty much explain you from a Zerg point of view what you're supposed to do, what you want to be doing and how it's going to happen. Now in the later videos we're going to go over build orders, scouting, holding certain timing pushes, knowing what to do, going up against mech and all that kind of stuff. But in this very first episode, the only thing I'm going to talk about is the game plan for both races in Zerg vs Terran. So we're gonna assume it is going to be a macro situation. Obviously there's a whole lot of, there's a whole lot of cheeses such as 2 Rex cheese, roach baneling busting, all that sort of stuff. But I'm not really going to cover that in this series. We're just going to talk about straight up macro versus your Terran opponent and how you want to be doing that. Now Zerg vs Terran for most Zerg players always seems like this really risky, fragile matchup. Because all of a sudden there's Reapers in your main base and you make a few Zergs to defend against that, but before you are already warded up the Reaper, there's already like Hellions knocking at your front door and all of a sudden there's Banshees and there's a whole lot of stuff and you sort of get behind because you're only on 2 bases. You don't really have a lair, you don't have double upgrade, you don't have any of that going on. And that is just because the Terran can basically tax your multitasking to the max. Now sadly, as far as the multitasking aspect goes of Zerg vs Terran, I can't really help you that much, it's all a matter of practice. What I can do is pretty much explain to you what you want to be doing, and then it's basically up to you to practice it as much as you possibly can, and never lose to a Terran anymore. Okay, so first off, how does Zerg vs Terran work, and what is sort of the plan that both players go into the game? First of all, we're gonna be talking about the Zerg player. What does the Zerg player do when he opens up a game of Zerg vs Terran? Considering he wants to be playing macro, he's going to try and get super quick 3 bases up. Besides that, they usually, it differentiates a little bit, but pretty much always you're gonna have to have 4 queens and pretty much only drones. What you usually end up seeing is that Zerg players maybe have about 10-20 Zerglings at most. Besides that, they have full base saturation on 3 bases with 4 or 5 queens to defend the entire thing. That is it, okay? You can actually already notice how incredibly greedy that is, because the Terran player can do so much aggression to you, but the only thing you're really making is a few Zerglings only and a few queens to defend everything. But besides that, the only thing you're making is drones. Now while getting all these drones, as a Zerg player you're trying to tech up. You're trying to tech up to more specifically double upgraded Zerglings, Banelings with speed, and Mutalisk. This is like the ultimate middle part of the game pretty much. It's the ultimate composition you want to be going for. Ling, Baneling, Muta. That is the most standard of all these Zerg vs Terran, from the Zerg point of view, army compositions. Now in the later part of the game, you will actually see the Zerg getting way more aggressive. As soon as upgrades finish and he has 3 base saturation, you will pretty much always see the Zerg get ridiculously aggressive. Now why is this? Why do Zerg players get so ridiculously aggressive? Well, usually once a Terran player is on 4 or 5 bases or so, it becomes nearly impossible to kill them. So you really, as a Zerg player, are trying to get a big eco up early game, then basically get relentlessly aggressive with all your units over and over again. And in the late part of the game, you usually see a transition into Ultralisk, sometimes with Infestors, sometimes Broodlords, but most of the time it's going to be something like Ling, Baneling, Muta, into Ultralisk and sometimes Infestors. That is basically the game from the Zerg point of view. So super greedy early on, basically defending everything with very little amount of units. Then, while the aggression is rolling out, you basically don't stop and you start attacking over and over again, while obviously still defending drops and all that kind of jazz. Now, what mindset does a Terran have when he goes into the game? Well, what does a Terran really want to accomplish in Zerg vs Terran? Usually what they do is open up super greedy as well. Considering they know the Zerg player is 99% of the time going to open up just as greedy as I just mentioned, they are allowed to play super greedy themselves. This means that they're going for a super quick 3 command centers. Now while getting all these command centers and this big economy up, the Terran player is usually going to have this goal in mind where they kind of want to deny your economy as much as possible. So basically what they're trying to do is do as much damage as they can with a few Reapers, trying to deny some creep spread, all that kind of stuff. Then while the Reapers are gone, they usually follow it up with Hellions, which is like 99% of the time the case. So they try to deny creep with that once again, they try to roast a few drones, maybe a queen if you give it to them. And basically what they're trying to do is just allow the Zerg player to not get a gigantic economy up. That is pretty much the early part game goal of the Terran player. Now usually a Terran player will move out at a certain point, which is when all his upgrades align. So most of the time this is going to be something like Marine, Marauder, Medevac, Mine. something similar like that, and they usually will push either at double upgrades finish, or like a stimpak timing push, or they will go for combat shield into stimpak, something similar like that, but usually they will push as soon as a whole set of upgrades finish up at the exact same time. Now a lot of Terran players currently don't really transition away from this composition at all. They actually found that Marine Marauder Medevac Mine is like a really solid army composition throughout the entire game because the upgrades scale incredibly well on these units. But sometimes when they get to the ultra late game, you will see like Raven transitions, you will sometimes even see battle cruiser or that sort of stuff. But really, the only thing you really need to know how to deal with, especially if you're not like already top master or grandmaster level already, you probably never really get to that point in the game anyway. So basically what it comes down to, the entire Zerg vs Terran flow of the game pretty much, is that the Terran player is trying to deny the incredible greediness from the Zerg, which is the second finger by the way, and then after that they're trying to get 3 bases up and attack over and over again with Marine Marauder Medevac while trying to get 4 or 5 bases established, because at that point it is super hard to kill a Zerg or a Terran player. Now while that is all going on, the Zerg player is pretty much just trying to deny that as much as he possibly can, because he knows that if he gets a big economy up, it is going to be really hard to kill the Terran. Now that is pretty much Zerg vs Terran in a nutshell. Obviously we are going to try and exploit all this knowledge that we have now and pretty much just try the best game we have. But first of all, in the next video I'm going to go over the super standard build order for Zerg vs Terran, how you want to be playing it, when you want to be making units, but most and foremost when you are droning up, because this is absolutely crucial for any sort of Zerg play in Zerg vs Terran. I want to thank you guys all for watching, have an amazing day. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and obviously if you're waiting for the next video you will probably have to subscribe, because you know, that will pretty much give you a little notification as soon as the new video is up. As always, don't forget to smile, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye! Throwing back. Huh?